welcome to another edition of this FWB collaboration with On the Ledger. Today, we are very happy to be joined by Ben Palmer. He's the founder and CEO of the New Computer Corporation. And I'll ask you all about what you guys are doing there in a minute. Previously, you were at the Barbarian Group. You're very prolific and well-known in the marketing space, so I'm super excited to dig in to lots of different things in this conversation, but we always start with a very important first question, which is, what was the first concert you ever went to, and what's the most recent concert you've gone to?
Oh my goodness. The first big concert I ever went to was Iron Maiden on the Seventh Son of a Seventh Son tour. That was incredible. Yeah, it was amazing. The most recent concert I went to, oh my gosh, what did I go see? I went and saw My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult. Which was like a bit of a throwback, but like totally amazing. And my friends from Detroit Adult opened for them. So that was a lovely evening. And that was like some elder punks.
Sounds great. Where was it?
Yeah.
Where was it?
It was downtown. And honestly, I forget the names of my LA venues. I'm like 5 years in, but -2 for COVID. And I forget the name, like the Fillmore maybe. Saw Reggie Watts there, so that was nice. I don't know. It was good. It was a good night. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, I will never forget, like, when I was in college, I ran the radio station, and we put on a Mission of Burma concert once.
Oh my
It was
God,
in
yeah,
Boston.
great.
And it was it was at MIT, and the security guards were like, "You're putting on a rock show." Oh no. And they like made me hire a bunch of campus police officers and get snow fencing. I was like, guys, it's gonna be a bunch of like 45-year-old hipsters with their kids. Like, it's not gonna be anything. And like 2 or 3 songs into the concert, the security, like the head of security was like, "I'm sending my guys home." And I was like, yeah.
Yeah, everyone's
Like,
politely
I
nodding.
told you
That's amazing.
this.
Yeah. So you went to
But
school in Boston. Yeah.
I did.
I used to live in
went to school
Boston.
Boston. Yeah.
Yeah,
So, I
I
mean,
started at
speaking
Barbarian
of
Group.
all of the best concerts that I saw, I mean, we had free tickets at the radio station, so I was at concerts nearly every night of the week when I was there.
When I lived there, I'd lived in the bottom floor of a duplex in Mission Hill, and my upstairs neighbors had a pirate radio station, and it was like kind of famous. Like, so like if you were a DJ, or you came in and you did a show at like Axis or Avalon, and like your after party was you would go and like do a session on the pirate radio station. And this is like late 90s, and they had chosen the station. I was not one of the founders, but I was a frequent DJ, and they had chosen the same channel as the on-campus radio station for Boston University, who was only licensed to broadcast on their campus, but they enjoyed spilling over into the rest of Boston, ambiently. And this station wasn't powerful enough to like interact with their on-campus network, but they met in the middle somewhere, and they had to shut it down when we were like seeing the same vans getting closer and closer around the house, and like we were like, okay, that's time. But yeah, I think the statute of limitations is up for that now. So
I also got my start, in pirate radio in LA back in the day. And,
hell yeah.
And Dave would,
tell me more.
I was 13 and I got a radio show, which was like pretty cool. I left a mix CD in Dad's car, and he posted it on a blog. And then this guy, Dave Conway, had a pirate radio station called Little Radio. And he saw the blog post and was like, "Zoe want a radio show?" And I was like, "Oh, sure. Sounds good." So I started doing that, but it was the same kind of thing. Like eventually it switched to just internet radio, but like at the beginning, like he had a transmitter, he was like moving it around when it
Amazing.
needed to be moved, all of those kinds of things.
It's
So
hard. They still have to triangulate it. You can get away with it for a bit, for sure.
Yeah, it was. I remember that. I think when you were doing the show, Z, the transmitter was on the roof of one of the dudes from Black Rebel Motorcycle Club's house up in the hills, up in Hollywood Hills.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
like
yeah.
he had good height
Yeah.
at his place, and he could get it there, and that's where it was. And I think
Yeah,
it was
that's
a
what
similar
this
thing.
one was.
Ultimately, there
Yeah.
were some vans, and they had to move it, or they even got a knock on the door, maybe. But I remember that one time they had to, move the transmitter.
Yeah, because they have to like get closer into an area and test the signal before, there's not like a magic yeah.
I feel
Yeah,
like
it's
now all of
amazing.
us would be really good at finding pirate radio stations because we're always doing with Wi-Fi. We're just walking around
Totally.
looking at our phone. The signal's getting stronger. Signal's getting strong. Oh yeah, there it is. There it is. It's a
Yeah, you
skill
could
that humans now
probably.
have.
So I mean, first of all, we've now established like one of my favorite things, the number of people like actually I think on this podcast series that are like either college radio people or radio people is very high, which means we've selected a really good group of people because there's something magic about like that cohort of humans. So I guess to dive into just kind of like a little bit of your history, right? So like I know that you started out kind of doing, traditional digital marketing, and now you're moving into the Web3 space. So it'd be great to just give our listeners like a little bit of background on like journey. How did you get here? Give us the highlights reel.
I would say probably non-traditional digital marketing is more accurate, but I went to school for physics when I was a kid, and then I dropped out when I saw the Mosaic web browser, and just got onto the internet ever since, and so I've been working on the web since the '90s. I used to like be a DJ sometimes, and do some graphic design, and I did start off like just kind of freelancing on the web, and then believe it or not, in the late '90s, I had an agent for me being a designer and coder, which was like pretty cool, and kind of wish that was still a thing, but it was like a nice woman in the suburbs of Boston named Cindy Busby, and she had a company called New Media Artists, and she would like find me projects, and she's like, "Would you ever work at an ad agency?" And I was like, "All right, sure, why not?" And so I did some websites for Volkswagen, who are actually pretty innovative in the web space, and I realized like my passion then and now still is to just like build as much new internet as possible, and just experiment with the medium, and I realized quickly that marketing was a great field for working online and like working on like kind of creative things online, because like the budgets are good and the deadlines are fast, and you just go, and so I did that for a number of years. I started my own creative company called Barbarian Group, and we did a lot of pretty normal stuff, like car websites and brochures on the internet. And then in like 2005, we made a website for Burger King that was called Subservient Chicken. And it was a fake webcam of a guy in a chicken suit for a cheeseburger company. Actually, it was selling a chicken sandwich, so it was even more perverse than that. And it was a fake webcam of a guy in a chicken suit with a text box, and you could type in whatever you wanted, and he would do it. And we had shot like hundreds of videos and did this whole keyword matching thing, proto AI, and nobody had ever done anything that weird for a brand on the internet. And so everyone just thought it was real. They thought it was a live webcam. And we had like 100 million visitors in a month in 2005 for like a Burger King website. And it just flipped the idea upside down of like what brands should be doing on the web, and that you can't just be driving people to your brochure website, or interrupting them, that you had to, you have to do a little song and dance and like do something for them. And maybe actually the user is in control, was like sort of the upshot of that.
Can we pause on that for one
Yeah,
second?
sure,
I have
sure, sure.
a couple of questions
Yeah.
about. I remember it, and I think anyone who was on the internet in those days probably does. But I don't remember this. What did we know at the beginning that it was associated with Burger King?
There was a logo, but it was brief, and it was at subservientchicken.com. And I think that the average user thought that probably didn't know if the logo was there because it was a prank, you know what I mean, or if it was really authorized. Like it didn't come with a big media campaign. There was a TV commercial that ran like late night, like at an hour, that was equally suspicious, you know.
Like when we did the Hello Nasty infomercial in 1998,
Yes,
and people would
yes,
say overnight, like, I don't know because I was really
yes,
high, but I
yeah,
think
yeah,
I saw a
exactly.
Beastie Boys infomercial.
Yes,
And so what you
same
said then
audience.
about
Yeah.
like brands needing to do more, that really was a moment where, the analogy that I always use is Umair Haq talking about the blockbuster versus the snowball, because in the previous media model, attention was owned by the networks. There were only so many channels. Now you have infinite channels, and you guys were really pioneering. Okay, you've got to create something that really drives people's attention and, as you said, puts them in control. How did you pitch that?
I would say we snuck that one through because we pitched screenshots of what the website looked like, and we didn't overprice it, and we were like, we're going to do this cool website that goes along with your new ad campaign for the chicken sandwich, and this is what it's going to look like. And like, imagine that as a screenshot in 2005 on the desk of like a marketing executive. They really have no idea what it is. Like, we didn't lie about anything, you know. And then we pushed it live without a lot of fanfare, internally. And then at the same time that everyone at Burger King realized how like unusual and chaotic it was, we also had some popular live journals from written by people at our company, and that was like ground zero. And we had like massive traffic within 24 hours. Like it actually just took off like crazy. And so when they were like horrified by it, we were like, this is how many people have visited the site so far. And they were like, never mind, leave it up, and it was like on CNN the next day, and like kind of,
So it was the subservient
yeah,
chicken. That's difficult to
exactly.
say.
It was like one of those situations where just like nobody stops you from doing exactly what you want to do, and you just like we had a good idea and we did it well. And the trick, honestly, for it working for people's brains was that we turned the audio off, and we exported the video at 3 frames per second, so it was like just crappy enough that you were like, I don't know. You gotta down res sometimes, to like for authenticity's sake. But yeah, and then we just it sort of changed the tone of the field we were working in, and definitely opened a lot of doors for us. And then we were just able to like do a lot of more kind of esoteric creative work, or get brands to trust us to do things that were a bit more experimental or experiential or out there. I don't know, I think the last like 10-15 years in the internet has been a bit boring, and I took a break. I sold that agency and I took a break for a little while, and I it's I'm glad we're coming out of the infinite feed sort of goop era of the web. My new company is with my CTO co-founder from Barbarian Group, and a few other folks, and like we got back together in 2019, with just like let's we're both in LA, let's start a new thing together, and let's work on like fun on the internet. Let's like figure out how to like do some new things that are scaled. Like I think everyone's as frustrated as we are. There's not enough experiences, and we actually started building some AI experiences when it was just like GPT-3. I can come back to that later. And then we built a video hangout experience that is now called Teleport, that is very fun, that we're rolling out this fall. That's like my favorite thing we've ever made. And it's like kind of a video a mashup of like old GeoCities, MySpace era creativity, but with like video technology and actual teleportation on the internet. It's like so fun, and I will take you for a ride sometime. And we actually built a whole prototype of that in 2020, and then paused and realized that the big opportunity is to not do what like I would say Tumblr did, in the sense that like you make something that's super fun, you have no business model at all, and it just like slides away from you, or you like have to sell it to somebody else, or like it changes the user behavior, and like that just keeps happening on the web, and that like now is the chance to use this new blockchain technology. We have programmable internet money, we have like granular rights management, we have like ownership, and tracking information in the user's hands. So we've spent the last couple of years building this huge Web3 tech stack that was initially designed to power our cool video experience, but is now a thing unto itself that can power other creative experiences. So we've got this dual business where we have like enabling technology for people to build creative experiences that have like good economics, and then we have this like psychedelic place to be on the web.
So it's the platform and the prototype that uses the platform.
Yeah, totally.
Tell us about both. What is the platform capable of, and then what are you doing with the experience, and how do people check it out?
So one way of thinking about it, and particularly with my history in marketing, is like the atomic unit of interest in Web 2 is like the cookie, and it's a secret tracking cookie that somebody else sticks in your browser, and like they get more out of it than you do, and so what we're thinking about in Web 3 is like, how do we flip that around? How do we like, first off, brands have to, like there's European data regulations. Like you can't just do that without a pop-up anymore. And like, Google's working on their own thing to solve that. But they're doing it in the Google way. And we've been thinking about how can we migrate people's taste and preferences to a blockchain powered experience, but that is like in the user's hands. So we call our wallet an organizer, because you're organizing your experiences, maybe your assets, maybe your friends, or other things. We have a migratory thing from cookies to Web3 that we're developing right now. That's going to be really fun. But mostly what we're working on is like a way for users to like kind of collect their preferences and plug that into other ecosystems. And that's like kind of the identity system. We have a bunch of features. We have a geolocation protocol that tracks assets in terrestrial space, in orbit, and online, and you can know where things are or where people are, or geofence token drops, or find your friends, or give out tokens if you're at a retail location or at an event or something like that. We have a streaming rights and authorization and tracking tool that will authorize a listener to stream a song, write that to the chain, and pay the creators. We have a splits tool. We have like an AI knowledge engine that sits on top of an LLM and has like tokenized knowledge, so we know who's put information in, and we can uprank or downrank or yank bad actors out.
So correct me if I'm wrong. I want to, if you can get me to understand it, then maybe we can get the listeners to understand it as well. Because I mean, I think also when people are thinking about, use cases and the, kind of incessant, like, I just don't understand the use case for, for crypto, to me, this is, if people can get their heads around this is pretty big for them, right? Because
it's big.
You're effectively saying when you said about cookies is that, right now, I mean, you are kind of taking that, we always say Web 1.0 username password 2.0 was who owns you? Is it Google? Is it Facebook? Is it Twitter? Is it Apple? Log in with, AKA who owns you. And, ultimately, the user will be, back in the driver's seat. So what you're saying is let me do that in a practical way, by giving users their preferences. I'm going to let
Yep.
you, the user, own your preferences. A big aha moment that I think I'm waiting to see exactly how people have it, but I had it because I was using XMTP for chatting. So I was using the Converse app, and then I went to test it in Coinbase Wallet, and just boom, all my conversations from this other app instantly
Yep.
appeared
That's
in
it.
this other app. And,
Yeah.
we've been used to, walled gardens for so long that it felt like a magic trick or, or a revelation. So in a way, and correct me if I'm wrong, but, you're trying to do a scalable version of that, which is I, the user, own my preferences. My preferences could be all kinds of things. It could be my shipping addresses and those sort of things, et cetera. And then you're making those portable for me across sites. Do I have that? Do
Yep.
I have that right?
Yep. That's totally correct. Yeah. And the reason that Web 2 platforms have taken off for brands and large customers is because they offer scale. Like that's where all the people are. They're hanging out. There's a big addressable market. So like for all of our Web3 stuff to work, we have to offer scale and like lateral audiences. But how do we do that in a polite sort of way, And so I think that that's it. The interoperability of the blockchain means all my viewing habits from like some streaming services, those are mine. I watch those. I click the like button or dislike button. I should be able to ingest that into my own, preference organizer, and then plug that into either another streaming service or something totally different where like those tastes like might, make my experience better or more effective, or, make my shopping experience better, or make my like, recommended concerts better, or whatever. And so like that's the magic of a decentralized public ledger of information, and that's why you would want to keep it there.
And so what is it you guys are building with this?
Well, so the thing that we're building with this for ourselves is an experience called Teleport that is installable on user websites. So you would put it at like, teleport.ledger.com, and I would be able to like go to your website with some friends. It's like a shared web browsing experience with like embeddable experiences, like multiplayer kind of things. We synchronize playback of content, and you can take your video experience and teleport to another place with your gang. So the three of us on this video here, we could be on top of your website, and we could be like, the game's starting. Let's teleport over there. Or like, let's go shopping. Or, oh my God, there's some news happening. Let's go read the news together. And we're a unit, but we're moving around the internet together. So it's like a kind of a teamwork interneting.
And we do this in real time, or we do this sort of in a
no. This is
not
real time.
not necessarily in a chat
Like it's
group
a
kind of-
hangout session. It's like, my little brother hangs out on Discord and watches movies with his friends.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
They could
it's
hop
like-
to
it's like-
they could hop to another channel.
Exactly. But we're doing that for the web. And so it is not launched yet, but it is like we have a prototype of the experience. We've built the Web3 platform, and at this exact moment in time, we are integrating those things together. So I can take you guys for a spin. Probably 2 months, we're gonna have squished it all together, and we're starting to roll it out with a few early customers.
When did you start working on this? And the reason I ask the question is because what I'm noticing right now is that some of the more ambitious projects that started, in kind of in 2021 are starting to come to market now. things like a video
Yeah.
game, which take a long time
Yeah,
to come
yeah,
to
yeah.
market.
This is like
Do I
this
include your
is
project in one of these
yeah, yeah, yeah,
as
for
one of
sure.
those?
This is like a video game universe level of effort for sure. And yeah, we built the user experience of Teleport in 2020, and then we spent 2 years building the underlying Web3 ownership, economics, rights management, streaming, all that whole group. And it's all. And the cool thing about it, like, we initially were just going to make it for ourselves, and then, as you both know, I'm sure, like, Web3 tech compared to Web2 is extremely front loaded. Like, once you've made it, like, you did it, it's on chain, you know what I mean? Unless you want to blow up the contract and write another one, So we realized we've built this superpower platform that we shouldn't just keep to ourselves. And so we did a little extra work, and it's all like mix it. It's like a modular API platform, So, like, you could use it to build your own business or power like all kinds of different experiences. But it's definitely tuned for us to make this teleport experience.
And that was my second question was, you've how much of what you're doing, like in nothing you've told me about what you're doing now, does it sound like an agency? Even when you're talking about the fact that other people can use it, it sounds more like a software licensing model. So
It is
is there
more
an
like
agency
that.
component to what you're doing? You mentioned for clients. So
Yeah,
fit that piece together for me.
yeah, I think we will be helping people on board with the strong hand when they want us to. But the idea is for this to be like accessible to everyone if you know what's up and you want to just like get a software license and play. Like, that's the scalable, that's the scale, as they say. But like, we're very creative people. We like to play with other people. And so we are, I think we'll always be collaborating on special builds.
And who's the perfect client for this?
I would love to have a very diverse array of brands and media companies and artists and solo artists, and like the ideal client is that like a lot of different stuff. Like, it's about movement, like the idea is that there's a rich world that you can move around in, and so, like, it's not actually, there's not like one thing that would be perfect. The perfect thing would be that it was like a healthy menu of different things, you know what I mean? And so, like, I think we've found something that splits the difference between an owned destination, like, going to facebook.com, and going to somebody's website that they made, where, like, you have to focus lots of marketing energy to like drive traffic to that, and like we are. I believe that I'm taking all of my skills and experience in working in marketing in a way that previously it was all hands-on projects. Like, we had to have a customer who hired us, and we built by the hour, and we would just work on one thing at a time in a very linear fashion, or parallel if you grow, but you don't actually get any better as you grow in creative services, I don't think. Like, like, usually your teams get to, like, maybe at a certain scale, then you just have like, like different states in your nation, you know what I mean? But like, I don't feel like Barbarian Group got like way better creatively when we were like 150 people versus when we were 50. Like, it was a struggle, And so I think what we're doing is solving current marketing problems and creative problems and experiential problems, but like without having to do everything in real time for customers, like that's like the goal. Cause like all the ad tech of the Web 2 era was made by people that had no business in the creative world. They're just like people that worked at, like, I built tons of cool websites, but I didn't think about advertising media or where the money was flowing or how the ads were tracked or anything like that at all until like a few years ago. You know what I mean? Like nobody in my position did that, you know, and all the old school media people were ignoring the internet until it was too late, you know? And so Silicon Valley stepped in and they control all the data, they control all the user identity, they control all the flow of media, they control the 98% of the money on the internet, but they're not creative. They don't care about the audience from an experiential point of view or an emotional point of view, really. Like they don't care about the brand other than the check, you know, and they don't care about the creative process, really. It's just they're just filling a hole in the market and they're very data oriented and like totally fine. That's business, you know, but I think that's the big opportunity right now in this particular field is that the economics are changing and the data is changing and how we handle the economics and data and attribution and that you can see where the money's going on the blockchain. You know what I mean? You can see where the data is going on the blockchain. So like, what do you do with that if you know a lot about marketing and brands and like how that works and you really care about like fun, you know, for the audience? So like that's the stew that we're cooking, you know, is to try to like build a system and a universe and technology that hits those marks for everyone that we were doing on a case by case basis with Barbarian Group, but like with scalable technology and experiences. And so like I don't ever want to be like making software with the door shut and like not, you know, doing collaborations with customers. Like I see as we scale, we'll always do some like cool experiences, but I do want people to be able to like, you know, in collaboration, but I do want people to be able to just grab the tools and just run with it and like figure it out themselves. Like I think that's what the web's all about, really. Like that's how I learned to do everything, you know, is just like, let's just, you know, take it apart and put it back together. And what if you plug this thing into that thing? And, you know, like, let's try it. So like, I think we need more of that, you know, and like we've exhausted what to do with NFTs, you know what I mean? But like, there's like 10,000 other things after that we haven't really tried yet, you know?
I guess I also like when you've been talking about this, I've been thinking a lot about kind of like and you just spoke to it a little bit, but the kind of like current attention economy, right? Which is what we've turned into on our like infinite scrolling and, you know, which app can hold your attention for the longest to generate the most ad dollars. And then I do think it's just super interesting to think about kind of like what the future attention economy looks like. And I love some of the things that you've hit on about, you know, like kind of owning your own data and your own preferences. And so I wonder if you could paint like a little bit of a picture of kind of how you see Web3 evolving this attention economy. Like what does that end up looking like?
Yeah.
Because
I have a fun thought experiment, actually. One feature I forgot to mention, we have a messenger that is a token gated messenger. And the idea is that like you have a group chat and anyone with the same token, that's your key to get into the chat, you know? And so that's like kind of built into everything. But you know, and that can be you've collected something, you're a customer, you're a fan, we've all exchanged a token of being on this podcast, so we're in the chat, you know. And maybe that's total spam prevention. If you don't have the token, nobody can get in, you know. But thinking about the attention economy, like what if you just charge for spam? What if you have like the top creative directors in the world or the top marketing people or the top radio people you have like a radio broadcaster token, you know? And so there's like 1,000 people with that and they're all like have huge audiences and super well known and fabulous radio voices. And like you can spam that group, but it costs $1,000 and it goes to charity, you know what I mean? Or it goes to you guys or whatever, you know? And you're like, what if you just sold your attention, you know, and like guaranteed if you pay the ticket, it goes to the top of the feed and everyone looks at it, you know what I mean? And like, but I see a potential future where groups of people can band to, and in web 2 we see that with like group shopping, like you can do a group buy, lots of like hobbyist communities do that with like technology, like, if 1,000 people get together, we'll produce this thing, and everybody's, or Kickstarter works like that, um and like, what if you could do that with attention? Like FWB is a DAO. Like, is FWB selling their attention? Probably not quite directly yet, but I see that being a thing that you could do in the future, where you're like, here's a here's the market rate for this community's attention right now, and like there's lateral communication amongst everyone. This is how frequently we respond to, like how often we convert to a message. I don't know. Who knows? I think we can take some phrases like attention economy and literally create an attention economy.
Yep.
Like we have the technology now. So like, what does that world look like? I don't know, but like,
Yep.
I'm interested.
If you think about it, that's a little bit what Brave has tried to do with the basic attention token.
Yes, totally.
And I remember back when I was at Yahoo, they had a project called White Hat, and I think it was Bradley Horowitz who was leading it. Could be wrong about that, but I believe so. That and it was all about basically you as the user sort of, getting the ads you want in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I agree, and because we're all kind of victims of the other way of doing it today, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there is a value and an economy around our attention. We are cohorts, and we don't really get to opt into it. So I mean, just pointing out that like it's an idea. I'm still like waiting for the way that it clicks, right? I mean, I actually saw a proposal for something recently, and it's like, okay, super interesting idea, but I don't know how to get that flywheel spinning, and I'm waiting for someone to figure it out.
I think we have to do some wacky demos of that experience. You know what I mean? Like, I think we have to go like somewhere conceptual and a bit gonzo, and then land in the middle is like the standard.
It needs its subservient chicken moment.
Yeah, so I guess I had one other question about some of the stuff you guys have been doing, and I wondered if you could talk a little bit about the song that owns itself before we wrap this up.
Oh
and
yeah,
tell us
for
about
sure.
that project.
Yeah, so that was a project we did a couple of years ago that was like about media autonomy, and what if you could attach the ability to transact to the media itself, and like, so we have a smart contract infrastructure that can attach to a song, and so then the song can sell itself. The song can go on to different streaming platforms, and you pay the song, and then the song knows who created it and who it owes money to and what proportions, and it sort of pays out to that. And so we had made that as like a sort of conceptual and technological proof, and the beginnings of a marketplace for that, and we stopped that. We paused on that path because we realized we didn't want to make a song marketplace. That's like a very, that's not the area that we want to live in, but that thinking has influenced our entire ownership structure in a larger sense. We had a super good time doing that. And actually, I think that was the first podcast that I did in the Web3 space, was talking about that on an FWB Discord, actually.
Yeah, so I'm curious because we're in a place where we've kind of gone through a big hype cycle. We all have a lot of excitement about the promise of this technology. I think the question is, how do we get more mass adoption? I personally believe sincerely and deeply in a world where customers own their own identity, their own preferences, their own their own data, et cetera. But if everyone needs to log into every website with MetaMask, then we're not going to, get there quickly. It's not something my mom is ready to do yet. So I'm curious, where you see things going, and with teleport, where you're placing your bet.
I think we need to do this without selling the end user on crypto or what's happening under the hood. I think we just need to do it, you know? Um, and like, we're not using any forward facing language that requires you to be a crypto native person. We're our wallet organizer thing is embeddable in existing experience flows, like user experience flows. So you don't have to pair an external wallet. If you're on like Nike.com, like it's just another button in the user creation profile. So, we use a fast chain. So it takes a couple seconds to do a real L1 transaction instead of, minutes and some arcane numbers to like be on Ethereum, and like if Ethereum was faster, that would be great, and like, but like just hot, like nobody cares what technology Visa uses to transact with the bank. They just know that Visa's like nerds have figured it out. It works, and you just have to trust that. So I think one side of it is like hiding the technology that is uninteresting to the end consumer and don't be confusing. And I also don't think that pure economics or privacy or rights management sort of is enough of a selling point at all. For like, we've already got the maximum audience possible to try new experiences just based on those factors. I don't think like that's we've tapped out and we've bounced off the ceiling for that already. So I don't think like just knowing what's going on conceptually under the hood with like ownership or rights management or privacy is going to sell it. I think that's why we're leading with this teleport experience as much as we're building these tools, is because like I think that the transformation needs to happen with this underlying technology and a different philosophy on technology and privacy and rights management and ownership and payments and like all of the things that make this magical. That needs to be the tip of the spear, needs to be cool new experiences that you haven't had in Web 2 or Web 3. And that I don't really think Web 3 is, I think it's an indirect motivator for those new experiences. Like, none of the things that we're doing with teleport like strictly require Web 3, but it will work and scale because there's economic motivators for people to do a good job with the technology, with the experience. Like, the reason that NFTs exploded was because there was finally a reward if you made some art that people liked on the internet. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't that like publishing to the blockchain made the art any better necessarily, but that like there was like a carrot at the end. And so I think we just need like bigger and more diverse, carrots, and I think that's the transformation that that needs to happen next in the Web3 space. Is like, okay, what are the kinds of experiences, big and small, that you will put like 100,000 or 2 million man hours into building with your team, and there's a reward at the end because there's a good economic infrastructure, and like, I think it's like the last decade of the web has been boring because there hasn't been, you're hanging out in rented space, it's not yours.
Yeah, we've slowly discovered that, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, I really I think it's super exciting. I'm glad you guys are building it, and I want to see it. So, let's come back and do this again
Yeah, I'd love
in a
to.
couple of months when you can show us teleport.
Yeah, maybe we can do this. We could probably figure out how to do the podcast on that, and we'll take a ride together. I would love to do that. That'll be super fun.
That would be amazing. It sounds like the great space coaster to me.
Yeah,
So I'm excited.
that's really good. You're
Excited
gonna
about
love
it.
it, actually.
The we have three questions that we always finish
Okay.
with. We started the series with the theme of creative custody, and then we realized that that meant something different to all of us who were talking about this series, and then we wanted to start the final series of questions by asking our guests, what does creative custody mean to you?
I mean, my head is actually going towards people having creative ways of putting you in custody on the internet. Is that wrong?
I like it.
I think that's perfect. I think that's
Yeah,
perfect.
I think we've been in
You're
internet
you're
jail. Yeah.
You're under arrest
Yeah.
by yeah. If I could have thought less about it, I would have said that my answer to the question would be the album "You're Under Arrest" by Miles Davis. But I didn't. You had to give me that one. So thank you. Another question. You've like me. Grew up building things
Yeah,
on the
for
internet.
sure.
From when the internet was new. I remember when there were no background colors. That's how old I am. And we've watched it evolve. And I think that many of our peers are still building in that ad agency world, or the brand world, et cetera, and they're interested in what we're talking about here, but they're not quite sure where or if there's a place for them today. When you're talking to people from your background, your past in the agency world, what do you tell them to help them kind of come over into from the internet of information to the internet of value?
I think people are pretty excited, honestly. I think that they're just like that's part of our audience for the software side of things is like we're gonna do some demos to like show you how you could take it for a spin, but like we're skating ahead and building some stuff that we can share with other people um, so that all of the creatives that are in the advertising world that don't have the opportunity to like take 2 years and like build a bunch of technology that you could do a lot of different things with can take advantage of it. Honestly, this is a very weird time for me professionally because like since I've been like in my early 20s like working full time on web stuff and I turn 50 next year, I've been working at a pace where I like launch a new thing like at least every couple months, sometimes a few things a month. You know what I mean? Like always like making stuff and putting stuff out there. And like this is the first time in my life I've like been in the shed for like years, And so like I'm actually just coming out into the world like with all sorts of things that we've been making and showing it to people. And I was quite nervous for a bit. Like I was like, am I, it's a big swing and like it's going super well and everybody's very excited. And like I think I've been doing some things that all of those folks that you refer to in the ad world are gonna be happy to take advantage of, and I think that that's it. Like we got to figure out how we can be helping each other because that's what the technology is about. Like it's decentralized, it is decentralized. Like how do we make these things that connect to what other people are doing in meaningful ways? And like, that's what the web is like super cool for, and like, I don't know, I'm excited.
Yeah, and then as a builder in this space, we're thinking a lot about kind of like what the future is of the world is going to look like because of tools like Web3 and AI and all these things. And so one of the final, or I guess the final question is what is something that is really difficult to imagine today, but you think will be a part of everyday life, say 20 years from now?
That we won't look at screens while we're walking around in the street. I think phones are going to be invisible and show up when you want them to and be like kind of everywhere and nowhere. And the idea that there is like a singular device that you need to cradle around like a baby little egg, that like contains all of your personal information, and like that's the only one and that's the only way you can do that. I think that's like completely insane and like not necessary at all, and like probably only exists at the moment because of cell phone carrier regulations.
Are these contact lenses, or are these just all of the devices
I think
around
it
us
just
become things that we're constantly
I think
interacting
it's
with?
your product, your ledger, things like that. Like that's just lets you log into whatever has the tech, and that's just you just grab it. You know what I mean? Like there's a million smart screens out here already, and smart speakers and headphones and like all this stuff. And like if you just have like a unit of identity that just you just have it turn on whatever level of multimedia you need for whatever context, and then it just has your stuff, and I think it's just an
Yeah,
authentic.
so I use my ledger. It contains my identity and therefore my preferences.
Totally.
So I could
Yeah.
jump into whatever computer and have my secure protected
Yeah,
area.
yeah. And then you just like that was the idea with the Chromebook, right? You were like, "Oh wow, cool, Chrome OS." You're like any computer can be my computer as soon as I log into it, and you're just like in there, Like I think the multi-device future of that is I think that's very real, I think that will free up society, to like kind of lift their head and like be in the room a little bit more, and like probably get deeper and do better work when you want to focus on work and not be kind of ambiently buzzing around all this stuff. And, and so like I'm trying to make more maximalist internet where you're like even more engaged, like the endless scrolling is like real bad, like you're not really there. You're not really not there. Like I think you should be like really involved, or be like, well, I did it, and I'm, like it's just this. We're in this in between sort of addict stage with technology that's like no good at all.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with the notion that we're at this in between stage, and that the Chromebook analogy is a really good one, right? Because in my view, because it is that sort of midpoint. Again, if Web 1.0 was username login, and Web 2.0 was login with Google, login with Facebook, and Web 3.0 is taking that same notion of that Chromebook and just saying, "Hey, I'm me. I can prove to you that I am not only me, but I am a member of these groups, and these groups might be, a U.S. citizen, a French resident, an FWB member and holder, et cetera. I can instantly sort of prove to you that I am all of those things. Well, now my computing environment is, somewhat set the same way when
Totally.
you get in a nice car and you push button one or button two and it adjusts your seat for you. Well, the world looks
Well, and
kind of like
also
that.
like if you choose to authorize with that specific combination of four tokenized preferences, that should shrink the available group of people who can get in touch with you to like just the people that matter in that specific context, And like I think when we start tokenizing preferences, and the same unit of preference is also an authorization key and a transaction key and a filter. So we did this thing at Barbarian Group years ago, and there was a golden period of Facebook's friend graph API where you could use it externally, and CNN was one of our clients, and Obama was running for re-election, and we did this thing where you could watch the debates, Obama's debates, on Facebook, streaming CNN into Facebook, and there was a live chat, and there was two tabs in the live chat, and one tab was just everyone that was watching on Facebook, like just total free for all. And then the other tab was friends only, and suddenly you were filtering out everyone on the internet that you hadn't already friended on Facebook. And it was really fucking cool. Like it was just, you were just like, oh cool, like I'm at a large house party on the internet, and it was amazing. And that was possible because for that summer, Facebook was like, oh, maybe we should just be like the friend API for the internet, and anyone that's a developer can use this to like filter out your non-friends. That's how I was looking at it. And that was the power to me, was that you could filter out people that were not your friends, you know? And I
Yeah,
don't know,
I think
that's
it's
stuck
such
with
a,
me a lot, actually. Yeah.
I clearly, and I love it. And like, thank you for building what you're building because of it, because I think we've already had, there's so many analogies to what you're building in the ways that you describe, things like Facebook friend group, and the cookie kind of does that for you already, right? Like when you drop into Instagram, I don't see the same feed as you. I'm the only person who sees the feed that I see because, my preferences are there. We all, to me, there's these two different timelines of the internet. One is about content and one is about communication. And what's interesting to me on the communication one is really that we're quite disloyal. We've moved from, and people forget, but it happens, pretty predictably, that we move from, ICQ to AOL Instant Message to Yahoo Messenger to MSN Messenger, and ultimately, I watch, my daughters Zoe and others, go from being on Be Real for 5 minutes to not, to communicating on Snapchat to not, to we're quite disloyal on these networks. I would argue it's for the reason that you just stated, because we're searching for a better filter. Like ultimately the pool fills up and you're looking for that like kind of tighter subset.
Yeah.
And in many ways, I think that's why, WhatsApp has replaced email for so many people, especially in Europe, because you've got, I've already got the kind of communities that are like, that I can plug into. So I love that what you're saying, because to me, it's like all this stuff that's sort of like, we know there's a consumer need for it, but the tools to build it are centralized. And the key question is simply what happens if they're decentralized and the keys to those are owned by the user.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the whole shift.
Exactly.
The behavior.
Totally.
Behavior is actually not new.
Yep.
So I love that. Thank you for sharing it, and do come back when we can teleport
Yes,
together.
100%.
And take that ride.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah, thank you
man.
so
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks, Steve.
This has been fun.
This content is provided for informational purposes only and is the sole expression of our opinion and should not be relied upon as legal, business, investment, or tax advice. Do your own research. Any loss or profit is your sole responsibility. Stay safe.